Start your video. I'll give that a couple minutes and see if it wraps around to here. Last time I did this at the.
See, here's the link here for the YouTube. It's a Zoom meeting, but it's streamed to it. So this is the invite link, I think. But it doesn't say.
Paste it into Notepad and see what it is. Yeah, I'm here, but we're not showing up there. That's a Zoom. I think we're just gonna tell Tracy. The board of supervisors meeting is live. You can find it on YouTube. Due to technical difficulties, a link cannot be provided, just something like that. Because about 10 minutes in, then you'll start watching those numbers pick up and they'll hit 12 or 15 and kind of fluctuate around there.
Here it is. This is how you do it. And that's the meeting. That's the link right there for YouTube.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, how come we're not live though?
Because I haven't started it live over here.
Thought you did.
Okay, now it says I'm live. It says I'm recording. There it goes. There it is.
It's here, but if this is the live channel, you should see me up and running around with maybe a 10-second delay. Am I on the camera yet?
No. There it is.
10 seconds?
Oh, it's longer than that, but
Okay.
it's there.
All right. So now that we know this works, we can either just keep this live up and running.
I don't know what the best thing to do because I don't know these guys. See, who's that guy? He's Ghost.
Looks like a fat serial killer.
So wrong.
That's why you don't have a meeting. That guy done killed everybody. He's got them strung up in the basement. They're being disemboweled and bled out.
God, this makes me think of some evil stuff.
Maybe some fava beans and a nice Chianti. All right, well, let's.
Relay setting in here. So if something does happen, you don't have to show it. I'm wondering if that's what's actually causing
Not really
this.
that fat. I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see if we can.
Anyways, this is the link for. Hey, where's Tracy? Because now Tracy,
He's over there
can take-
in the office.
this is the link that Tracy's looking for to put on his YouTube channel.
I don't think I got him on this one.
You, don't buy those donkeys. I just got one. I got two now. Are you trying to get one on, rid of one? Well,
Are you selling them or giving them away?
I think maybe give them away.
A Jack or a Jenny?
Well, I gotta find out. A boy from North Carolina called me, and some friends down in Carolina
Mm-hmm.
bought land on Fairview. And they got 6 donkeys they want rid of.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me he thinks it'd be little or nothing, if anything. But he's
Well,
gonna find out I asked him what kind of is spotted or Jerusalem or what. He advised he won't find out.
Yeah, I'll let somebody know and I'll let you know.
Right. The, I'm used to this being way over here. That's crazy talk.
New times.
That's it. It's all good.
Yeah, this is a real serious delay.
That's pretty good right there, I guess. I think people were fussy because when people stood up to talk, all you could see was their butts.
My wife was the one that said she'd never. You think I'm gonna sit there in front of a camera, everybody showing my butt, you crazy.
Yeah, I wondered about that. I'm like, that ain't my call.
And then she said, are you in charge of the butt show?
Yeah.
I appreciate you staying, but
I'll stay for a little bit. Unless you want me to stay for the whole thing.
I think we'll be okay.
So, now, the only thing you have to worry about though is when they go to closed session, you have to turn all this crap off. Y'all got a closed session tonight? Very good.
Yeah, it was good news. Tracy, we have the link for you.
Okay.
Do you wanna? I'll guess you can text it to me. I can, but I don't have you on a contact on this phone. Might have you on my work
You can
phone.
put me on there if you ever need something. I can try and help you, know
Yeah.
what I can do, but I'll try.
Cute.
It's 276.
Hang on. I don't have people watch. Hang on. It'll take me a minute. All right, 276.
233
Mhm.
6022.
All right, all right. You'll get this in a minute, and that'll be my number, 276-620-4989.
And you got a long last name, don't you?
Yeah, I think I might have you on my work on my work phone, but this is
I'm
my
gonna put
personal.
David out there in here, so that's fine.
All right, where's that link at? .com /
Who keeps doing this?
What are they doing?
Now it's gonna be seeing my face in that. In complete horror.
Let's go ahead. So we are recording. This is live. Give it a couple minutes, see if it shows up. We are live now. Tracy says it's not working.
And
Y'all
if
missed
that's the
Century
right.
Road.
It should be. Those were ones, or those were
Well, this is
eyes.
what I got.
Yeah. Yeah, click on that. That should take you right
Well, maybe the fact I don't got signal now. One inch.
there. Is this your phone or work phone?
It's not working.
Oh, this is a Mac phone. All right, so we go to, where's your gears at for your settings? Because you can get the Wi-Fi here. Wi-Fi in the building. Ah, see, let's get you on the Wi-Fi. If you do the Wi-Fi guest, you don't need a password or anything like
Do
that.
we even use Captain Portal?
Give that a second. And all you gotta do is just accept the terms of use. Connect. Continue. It'll take you to Facebook automatically, our thing, but you can log out of that, close it, give everything another minute to catch up, and see if your YouTube comes across there.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Tell everybody else it's free Wi-Fi if they get that guest
I've
Wi-Fi.
got about 1 minute till. If you're here to speak tonight, make sure that you've signed up on either one
Oh,
of the
you can do it on
sign-up sheets.
camera.
In the little lobby. There's two different sign-up sheets. There's one sign-up sheet for the proposed animal at large ordinance. And then the other would be any other issues that you want to talk on, which we will hear during the public comment section.
Y'all missed Century.
It should be, those were ones, or those were eyes. Oh, yeah. See, there's a delay on that.
Well, maybe.
We also have Wi-Fi. If anybody needs to connect to the Wi-Fi, there's be under guest, Grayson County. Okay, I've got 6 p.m. So I will call the August regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. And at this time, I would ask Mr. Smith, if you would lead us in the invocation and pledge, please.
Father, thank you for the day that's been given, live and work, play here in Grayson County. Thank you for our citizens that have come out tonight for this meeting. Thank you for our Board of Supervisors and the work that they perform so willingly. Pray that you bless all efforts. Be with us in this meeting tonight. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would remind everyone of the decorum for this meeting, which is located on the back sheet of your agenda. Please ask everyone to be respectful when others are speaking. And that said, each member of the board has ahead of time received a copy of the agenda and the consent agenda. I don't have any noted amendments or changes to that.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda, consent agenda. I have a second. Okay, a motion before us, a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Also aye. I will make one more announcement for anybody that may have arrived late. We do have a public hearing tonight, and that will be in regards to the proposed animal at large ordinance. Anyone that hasn't signed up to speak and you're here and would like to speak concerning that matter, there's a sign-up sheet in the lobby. Also, if there's other matters that you're here to express concerns or make comments on, please sign up on the public comment sign-up sheet. And that way we'll make sure we get to hear from everyone. Let's see what time we got here. We'll let everyone know that's in attendance that Steve Durbin, the county's attorney, will be joining us by Zoom. And so he will be here for the duration if needed, or he will be here for the public hearing if there's any concerns or issues that come up.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Okay, Mr. Durham, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you.
Will be a bit of an echo when it's delayed.
He may be muted. Second, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Yeah, that's pretty significant. We will make one more announcement for anybody that may have arrived late. Yeah, we may want to kill it tonight. And that will be in regards to the proposed animal large ordinance. Anyone that hasn't signed up to speak and you're here and would like to speak concerning that matter, that sign up sheet in the lobby. Kill that. Also, if there's other matters that you're here. Okay, I have 5 minutes after. So Chair would entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Okay. Motion before, so a second to go into the public hearing. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? I also aye. Okay, prior to taking comments from citizens, Mr. Kevin Sperlin is going to do a little presentation and maybe explain the ordinance a little bit better and its intended purpose. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Glad to bring this up again tonight to you all to discuss. What I'm going to do, just for your all's benefit, is I'm going to use a video. Okay, and I'm not going to do PowerPoint. This was kind of an 11th hour deal, so please feel free to laugh at my artwork. Okay, but I think it'll help define for you fence in, fence out, what this ordinance is and what it's not. And as you potentially receive comment, I know sometimes those terms get confused, so I would like to clarify those as I go through this. So first off, I'm going to speak up so you can hear me. This is terrible drawing, but basically you've got two individuals. We'll call them Mitch and Kevin. And Mitch has got his big cowboy hat on, and he's got some pretty skinny cattle here. In a fence out situation, basically there's a physical barrier that must be crossed, and the key fence code sections, and I've got copies of this if you need them. There's definitions of a lawful fence and all of that. The key parts is when damages for trespass occurs, and there's the Code of Virginia 55.1-2810 through about 2812 defines what those damages are that Kevin could take if his corn gets damaged, okay, by these animals trespassing. Okay? In a fence out situation, that can only happen with this being enclosed by a fence. Okay? And so that fence goes all the way around that. The property line does not really come into play. Okay? So if I want to have damages for their coming in here, I would have to enclose that off. Okay? So that's fenced out.
And that's the current law.
That's the current state of Grayson County. Okay? Now, fence in, basically what the state code allows is for the county to basically say the property line is the fence. And as soon as animals can cross over, Kevin can seek damages or can put a lien on those animals or impound those animals as soon as they cross that property line. It doesn't have to be a physical structure. Our advisory committee was not in favor of going that route simply because we've got a lot of new neighbors. We've got a lot of conditions there where we have an occasional trespass. An animal, many of you have livestock, know that they get out sometimes. Okay, and there's nothing in the code that says the first time they cross that property line, the damage is going to be sought. So we kind of wanted to avoid having that liability between neighbors, that as soon as an animal got out the first time, there could be liability. So that's why we did not go this route. What we did do as an alternative, we keep fence out for the county, but let's say that we've got a landowner that's negligent. We got a hole in the fence, okay? And by all intents and purposes, boundary fences, you know, we're not building fences just around our gardens. We have a property fence. Right? And if those animals get through that fence, and they do it on a repeated basis because, you know, some people don't keep their fences up, we've not really had a good way to deal with that. With this ordinance that we've proposed, the Ag Advisory Committee, made up of farmers, has proposed for you all to consider, is that repeat offenders, that happens multiple times. They also have access to public roads, which is a public safety concern, that the law enforcement, our sheriff, can actually enforce this ordinance as a misdemeanor. So it keeps neighbors from fighting with one another, but it does give our law enforcement the opportunity to say, hey, you know, you can fix your fence or we're going to impose a penalty. And that's basically what this ordinance does. Any questions?
What does it not apply to?
Does not apply to cats, dogs, and honeybees.
The chickens and turkeys, fair game.
Yep, as it is written. And we do have a 12-month delay from the time that it is enacted to give people that may need to repair fences a chance to do that before it actually goes into effect.
Could you flip back to the first? So is this kind of a neighborly version of the fencing?
Yes, well, it's more of a neighborly version of fence out. Okay, this is still what we're operating under. We're still kind of think of this as free roam. These animals could go wherever, it's old common law. But, you know, practically speaking, the fence is going to be right here for most situations, okay? But the code does say that it, if any livestock damage or any domesticated livestock enters into any grounds enclosed by a lawful fence. I think that's probably an important word, and our county attorney could probably speak to that better. But that has to be enclosed as defined in previous code sections. The owner or manager of any such animal shall be liable for the actual damages sustained. That's how it's written in the code. Yep.
So when the fence is not fixed, how many times do they get before it's a misdemeanor?
Yeah, that's left to the discretion of law enforcement. It's a good question.
So that doesn't need to be written into the ordinance? Or that would be a Durban question?
We did not necessarily come up with a hard and fast number of times. Again, we just left that up to the.
So like a speeding ticket, they can get a warning, back out here, okay. Fair enough.
Mr. Chairman,
If I could,
Sheriff
if I
did
could,
speak to me today about that, and he said basically what they were gonna be looking at is cattle keeps getting out 2 or 3 times every month. And it's repeat every month that's happening. He said that's the ones we're gonna be looking at.
And I will also make a point that this is not uncontrolled movement. This is cattle out. Okay, so if cattle are crossing a road from one farmer, the farmer's property, he may have or she on one side of the road and the other, and they're controlled moving those animals from pasture to pasture across the road. That's not part of this. They would not be involved there.
if I could,
Fail to recognize Ms. Young, is there anything you care to add to it or like to speak to? Or
No, I think Kevin did a great job. He's really studied these laws, and what they say. And I kind of gave the boring version, I guess, last time because I can't draw quite like Kevin. And he wanted to give the basic version to just make sure everyone understood, what the laws and what we were trying to do was. Thank you.
One letter that has been sitting ahead of time. It's Tina Cunningham, which wish to address this issue. And in her letter, Miss Cunningham resides at 155 Bear Tree Lane, Troutdale. And proposed ordinance to prohibit trespassing of animals on private land and to prevent animals from running at large on public highways. In February 2022, I wrote the Grayson County Agriculture Committee about my concerns of a proposed animal at large ordinance versus the fence out policy currently in Grayson County. My concerns were not addressed. The committee response being that it was too expensive to require livestock owners to also fence in their livestock. The ordinance under discussion on August 11th, 2022, if passed, will be a mere slap on the wrist and will not accomplish nothing but setting neighbor against neighbor. All we non-livestock farmers want is to keep someone else's animals out of our lawn, gardens, and acreage. Here's my example. 3 households of 5 people, none younger than 70, live on half of a 200-acre farm that has been in the family since the 1930s. The other half of the original property is owned by a relative whose employment requires him to live away from the farm 5 days a week. He has approximately 30 head of beef cattle. These cattle have little good grazing, and they are frequently hungry, especially during the winter months. Our farm is 70% hay fields, 30% wooded and home, and very attractive to hungry cattle. The cattle frequently tear down the fences in a boggy area and roam our farm in search of good foliage. They make their way to the hills, to our house, to the public road, and at times cross the road to neighbors' houses. Since the owner is not at home, we have the task of rounding up the cattle, get them back on their side of the fence, and then repair the fence, which under current fence out policy, Grayson County fence out policy, is our legal responsibility. How is calling the sheriff to issue a summons or paying a minimal fine going to keep the cows on their side of the fence? Fine or not, the cattle still have to be herded back to their side of the fence. We're tired of keeping his cattle in his fields and out of ours. Talking to the owner has produced nothing except frustration on our part. He apologizes, says he'll help with a new fence, and the cattle continue to get out. And as this is a relative, we would be reluctant to call the sheriff's office, but our frustration mounts. We're prepared to erect a new boundary fence if we can find a reliable contractor, which has so far been fruitless considering the third of mile fencing needed. I urge you to withdraw or defeat this proposed ordinance. Please reconsider the possibility of making Grayson County a fence-in county. Good fences make good neighbors. We're trying to do our part toward solving our problem, but the livestock owner needs to be liable for the damages and aggravation caused by wandering livestock. Sincerely, Tina Y. Cunningham. And I believe that's the only letter I have. So I have a motion to come out of closed set or public hearing.
So moved.
Okay. Motion force, second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any nays? Also. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have Mr. Tom Revels on broadband update.
Mr. Chairman, other members of the board. As you know, I've been working at this for about 5 weeks. And I approached this opportunity out of frustration, quite frankly, anger. I live in White Top, the last of the areas to be wired for internet. And I have to drive 40 minutes to go to North Carolina to get access to Wi-Fi to do my part-time consulting work. So I know what it's like to live in an area without reliable internet. But like most things, when I get mad about it, I tend to focus and get very determined. And so I approach you tonight to give you an update. And I hope that my determination to help the county, help our vendors, and help the people who are struggling to find out about when and where and how they will get internet service can be answered sooner than later. 5 weeks ago, as I spent my first couple of days with the help of Mitch and other people, Linda, I took every document that we have in the files around here regarding the internet project. And I read them and I studied them. I wanted to understand the plans, the contracts, our funding sources. And frankly, as we began to look at the collection of citizen concerns that had been submitted, first thing that I did was looked at our grant funding. And as you all know, we have about 2.1 or 2 million in grants from 2 sources. And you also know that we went for a period of about 3 or 4 months without a project manager. And frankly, I found our grants out of compliance because several reports that are required monthly had not been filed. Now, in approaching the state about that, they said that's not unusual when you have a transition in leadership for a project. And it was something that all we had to do was put the numbers in, develop the reports, send them in, and they checked the boxes. So I can tell you today that all of our grants are in compliant states and we have no deficiencies at this point. The second thing, I worked with one of our members of the staff here, Allison Burchett, who is an incredibly talented lady, because she had been cataloging and recording customer citizen concerns that had been called in. And we reached out to members of the board. We tried to put together and have put together a complete report, and we're constantly updating that every day because we're getting complaints every day. Not just to record them and have a nice file, but frankly, to begin to look at what are the common complaints that keep arising all the time. And believe me, there are some. Because I have been taking those and going and sending them to our vendors, both AEP and Gigabeam, to make them aware of deficiencies on the ground and the concerns of citizens, which to me, as the ultimate benefactor of this project, have a very valuable and frankly most important perspective. So we have put those together. I will tell you that those concerns have begun to be filtered into their response and messaging that they are using. It's still not where it needs to be in terms of Gigabeam's response and customer service, but they are making advancements. They have improved. Literally in the last 2 days, they released a new version of their website. And it is becoming more factual with better information about where they are actually working to kind of connect people to the system. So while I don't think we're out of the woods with customer service and getting good, reliable information to people, I think we're on the right path. And as Gigabeam and AEP people have learned, I'm not the brightest guy in the room, but I'm probably one of the most persistent. And I think in this case, that's absolutely necessary. I also found that there was no real defined plan for the implementation of the system. And I first thought, well, boy, that's probably the most negligent thing on the part of vendors I've ever seen. Now, Mr. Belton, I know that as a former, I believe now, AEP employee, you know that your company is big on plans. And so the plan for the cable they were hanging is perfect. Question about a plan was the last mile, connecting actual families to that fiber. And I first thought it was because our vendor was totally negligent. Frankly, that's kind of how I approached our vendor. But what I learned is the COVID period, the pandemic, created a lot of problems for everybody. Created problems for AEP, logistical problems, getting supplies and equipment, staffing, splicers. And they're one of the largest corporations in the country. Our last mile company is a small company. And believe me, I trusted what they said, but I have this saying, I trust you, but I verify. And so I went to Bluefield and sat down and I said, you're telling me you can't get supplies. Show me your orders, show me your backlog. And they did. And literally it was taking them 10 to 12 months to get some of the supplies back in 2020, 2021. There were certain specialty connectors that were required by AEP, which is not uncommon for the companies. And those were backlogged. They had lost staff, been trying to recruit. I looked at their recruiter firm and the documentation, and they were recruiting and literally to get a person to help connect the OLTs to, which is one of the boxes that actually feeds the line to your house. Took them 14 months to recruit one person. I'm not trying to stand here and give you all the excuses because COVID did impact this project significantly. And when I told you I thought it was negligent, they didn't have a plan, I can tell you why they didn't have a plan. Because the governmental entities that were supervising our project went to sleep during COVID too. They didn't require reports, which was supposed to be done on a monthly basis. The few that they did require, they let you get by with checking a box and putting no comments on it. They did no project assessments. I mean, there's no reason any of you would know, but Mr. Fant knows and Zeke knows. We had the first on-site inspection of some of the equipment today from Richmond. And that's the first one that I'm aware of, John, in 2 years. So our vendors, while they were suffering and struggling through COVID, certainly had no reinforcement, frankly, from the county or from the state to keep themselves up to date and in order. Is that a reasonable excuse? No. But I think we all know that the people who are supposed to be watching you and setting standards for you go to sleep. I think many times the people that are doing the work have a tendency to slow down. And in this case, they did. I approached this literally, and Mr. Fant will tell you, he's the chairman of the broadband committee. And one of my first reactions was, after looking at our, with legal counsel, our contract, I found out that most of the provisions have been violated. So my first thought was, can them, let's get a new one. I mean, I ran a business, I owned a business, and when I worked with vendors and they didn't comply, I didn't sit around for 2 years and wait for them to wake up. I basically said, thank you very much. And I went and found somebody else. But when I dug into the contract, what I began to realize is a lot of the state ordinances that were put in place and regulations for this type of project made canceling a contract very difficult. And here's one example. If we were to vote tonight, if this group, not we, sorry guys, but if you were to vote tonight to cancel that contract, then probably in 3 days, we'd have notification from the state that all of our grant funds have been pulled. Because the grant funds were given to the county and they required us to designate a vendor. And if you change that vendor, then your grant funds aren't good anymore. So any of you who played with grants know how they can be sticklers for that type of thing. So at the end of the day, I concluded and reported to the broadband committee this week that I don't think canceling the contract makes any sense whatsoever, because as a taxpayer, I don't have to come up with $2.5 million to try to continue this project. We could apply for another grant. Well, frankly, I was told by the state people who award those that they wouldn't look real kindly on us if we canceled one contract that they'd already awarded and thought we could come back for a second. And they said, with the demand for money today, when we did ours, we were one of just a few. Today, every county in Virginia is filing grants to get money to do broadband. So now we would be competing with probably 10 times as many counties to try to get the money that's out there. So what's our recourse? Well, last week, members of the broadband committee and I met with representatives of AEP, representatives of Gigabeam, and also Israel and Quinn, who, as you know, is a delegate for our area from the Abingdon area. He was instrumental in helping change the state law that enabled AEP to do what they've done, which is hang the high-speed fiber so that a last mile vendor could then connect it to your house. Prior to changing the law, they couldn't do it. Your vendors like Comcast, CenturyLink have an monopoly. So obviously he has a real interest in this project. He wants it to succeed. And I can tell you, I had a meeting yesterday with Gigabeam and AEP, and I don't know exactly what he did, but I've never met a more compliant, interested bunch of people to make things right and to ramp this project and to get it moving as the representatives from AEP and also Gigabeam. Let me give you a couple of examples of what we're doing now moving forward. Number one, we're developing a comprehensive plan that will designate by zone how many houses they'll connect on a weekly basis so that we can now tell you if your zone has 500 houses and they're connecting 100 people a week, then they ought to be within your area for 5 weeks. And then we'll know what the next zone is. That way, when you pick up the phone or you go to the Big Green website, you should be able to look at that and say, okay, White Top, oh, probably the end of 2023. Not soon enough for me, but I'll tell you, I'd much rather know when it's gonna happen than be standing around not knowing what's gonna happen. And so they've agreed to develop that plan. They're gonna present it to the broadband committee in September. And it will come to this board with a representative from AEP, a representative from Gigabeam, and myself to deliver that plan. Why will that be good? One, it gives us a benchmark to know, are they performing? Are they meeting their standards? But more importantly to me, it gives us information to share with people like you who wonder, where is it, when is it, and what's going to happen in our area sometime in the next year and a half. We're also doing a communication plan. We're going to be working on ways and identifying ways to get information out to the public more effectively. I'll be meeting with AEP and Gigabeam for operational meetings once every 2 weeks to get the latest information, not only about connections, but if there are issues that arise that may delay the project, at least we'll know about it and can get information out to people to help set clear expectations. So we are working diligently to try. I have to applaud AEP. They've done everything they said they would do, but even they acknowledge that they've had difficulties with staffing, difficulty with the quality of fiber. In Elk Creek, one of the delays when they started hooking up houses, they realized part of the fiber that had been hung was defective. And they couldn't know that until they tried to connect people who were going to be served. In credit to AEP, they sent splicing crews out and line crews out immediately and rectified that and kept the project moving. So am I happy with the project? No. Am I satisfied when I might get internet service? No. But do I believe that we're on a path to do it more in a more informed way and a more efficient way? Absolutely. And my goal is to make sure that when people in this county, like myself or my neighbors, go online to ask questions, they'll get good information and good answers. Might not like the answer, but at least it'll be accurate and reliable. And so, members of the board, that's what I've been working on. And I applaud Mr. Fant and the broadband committee. I applaud management because it's been all hands on deck and we've all worked together and we will continue to do that. Try to get this project back online and in service so that I can beat 2 years of getting internet service in White Top. Thank you. Questions?
Mr. Fant?
Just for clarification, so you're here tonight at step one. One thing that we talked about is a monthly update, whether it's you or the county administrator. Plan that the broadband committee is going to get in September, that plan will be presented to the board with the rereps in October. Correct. Is that right? Correct. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. So, Mr. Rivers, I don't want to muddy the water to take us into the weeds, but I feel like folks need to know. So, APCO, they've completed 94%, 92%, and the agreement that they have with the state is rate increases. Can you mention that to me? I'm sorry, but I didn't understand it fully.
APCO presented, and I'm saying this from information I got from all of the utility companies that are participating in this kind of project, and it's multiple. Dominion now does in the eastern part, APCO here. has the ability to recoup some of the cost of their fiber that they're hanging through a rate increase, a very small increase over a period of years. And one was filed in January, and another has been filed in June, but I don't think that one has been acted on by the